What's up guys, it's Susie Bullock from HeyGrillHey.com, and today I am giving you a beginner's guide to smoking your first whole hog. Nothing too complicated. You can do this on your pellet smoker or any other type of smoker that you've got. It's gonna taste absolutely delicious and it's easier than you think. Let's do it. Time to get into this whole hog. We got to start with the preparation, and the preparation is really important because what you do now is going to impact the entire cooking process and of course the flavor at the end. So prep's really important. You can cook your hogs whole like this. We're going to take a different approach and we're actually going to cook our pig flat. So that means we got to cut this bad boy open and make sure it's gonna fit on our smoker. We are cooking a 35-pound pig today. This is going to fit perfectly on our Camp Chef pellet smoker. You can go bigger or smaller depending on what size of smoker that you have and how you can get a hold of your pigs. Speaking of getting a hold of a whole hog, sometimes they're a little bit difficult to find. We called around a bunch of places locally here in Utah. The place we found ours was at actually a Costco, like a business Costco that does restaurant supply. If you have a restaurant supply store, you can probably pick one up there. If you're really resourceful and you have a lot of agriculture in your area, you can probably actually find a pig farmer that will sell you a whole hog ready to go, pretty much at the size and weight specifications that you're looking for. So you got to do a little legwork, but you can find a whole hog. I'm sure of it. This guy's 35 pounds, like I said, and the only thing that's gonna change based on the size of your pig is how much injection you're gonna use, how much seasoning you're gonna use, and how long it's gonna take on your smoker. You ready?
Sure.
Okay, here's how we're gonna start. We're gonna take off any of the strings that's tying this guy together, and then we're gonna flip it over onto its back. I'm gonna put my gloves on. Todd is not sure about this. He's doing fine though. He actually asked me why we were doing a whole hog video. And we gotta do a whole hog video because I cooked a whole hog in the finale of Barbecue Brawl. People were like, teach me how to cook a whole hog. And I gotta be honest with you, I have not done a lot of these, but I'm gonna show you what we've done in the past, some of the takeaways that I've learned from each of my hog cooks, and we're gonna make a really pretty delicious pig. You good? Okay, can you help me flip him over? Keep him on the plastic. Okay.
You gonna spatchcock this thing?
We're gonna spatchcock a pig, essentially. We wanna butterfly it open. It'll give us a lot more even cooking and it'll also cook a lot quicker. Wanna do the honors?
No.
Okay, we're just gonna go straight down the sternum. I'm using really sharp kitchen shears. I've also seen people on Barbecue Brawl, we used a saw, because our pigs were like 60 plus pounds. On these smaller pigs, a really good pair of shears will work just fine.
Watch your finger.
So now that we've got the breastbone open, we're gonna come in here with a really sharp knife and actually split along both sides of the spinal cord so we can separate the ribs. We gotta be careful. We don't wanna go too deep or we will cut into the loins. Gotta make sure you hit the collarbones right here also. And then you can press it down and flat.
Burr, burr, burr.
Boom, we got a flat piggy.
Cute.
It is. You okay?
I'm okay.
All right, while you're in here, I definitely recommend grabbing your kitchen shears. You want to clean out any glands, and I also recommend peeling back any of the silver skin that you'll find inside. This runs along the rib cage right here. This is a little skirt steak essentially that you'll see on a pig. I'm going to trim that away, and then I'm going to peel back the membrane on the inside of these ribs right here, and that's our next step. We've got the membranes removed. Now it's time to trim back the skin. We're gonna trim back the skin on both the shoulders and the hams so that we have a lot of access to the smoke and also the seasoning, because that's what makes the really super yummy bark that we like to eat. And when it's covered by this skin, it's really hard for the smoke to penetrate it. So we're just gonna take our sharp knife.
You gonna trim it back and then cut it off, or you leave it?
The skin?
Yeah.
Trim the skin back like completely, remove it. Just take it right down to the meat itself. So on the hams down here, I'm actually gonna cut the skin back and expose it almost all the way to the knee joint. And on the shoulders, we're gonna cut back and do kind of the same thing. Just give it a nice like open exposure to the smoke and the seasoning.
Makes sense. I just don't know if you meant completely remove it or
Yep.
just cut it
No,
back.
we're taking it all the way off. Okay, so now that we have our hams trimmed, our ribs prepped, and our shoulders prepped, we need to make sure this is gonna fit into our smoker. And so to do that, we're actually gonna trim the feet off at all of the joints. You may or may not have to do this at home, just based on the size of your smoker, but I know for how deep ours are, we gotta take the feet off. So we're just gonna use a cleaver and our kitchen shears, get right between the joints and snip them off. It's not too difficult, you just gotta be accurate. Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Legs off, hams and shoulders prepped, ribs are ready to go. So before we do our injection and our seasoning, we want to make sure to do like a nice once over on our pig. You can use paper towels, remove any bone fragments or any leftover like strings that are hanging about, and then use your kitchen shears to remove any glands, anything that's left over kind of up in the jaw cavity, along the spinal cord.
Why?
It's not delicious. And you only want what's left in your pig, what you actually want to eat, and what's really super yummy. So take a minute, clean it up really nice, and then we're ready to inject and season. Injection time. Now, if you watched Barbecue Brawl, you'll know that I did an injection with my sweet rub. Actually, in the injection itself, Chris Lilly did not love that. He didn't love that there were pockets of the injection in there. So we're skipping the sweet rub today, and we are doing a simple apple juice and apple cider, salt and brown sugar injection. This will give it moisture. Apple is a really great complement to pork, so it'll actually give it some real nice sweetness as well. It keeps it super juicy. This is gonna be cooking for a while, so we wanna give it some liquid. So we're adding 4 cups of apple juice, 2 cups of apple cider vinegar. I'll pour that in. Yeah, please. And then 2 tablespoons of kosher salt and 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Okay, whisk that all together. Make sure the salt and the sugar start to dissolve. And we're just gonna fill up this pig with this yummy liquid.
All right, I'm gonna go prep the smoker while you inject.
Okay, what temperature are we gonna run at?
You tell me.
275.
275.
275 will get us a lot of smoke flavor, but because this is a smaller pig, it'll actually do well in those higher temperatures. We're gonna be cooking this skin side down, just like this, and the skin's actually gonna insulate against some of the heat on the bottom and retain the moisture in the meat on the top.
Cool.
Thanks, Todd.
I'm on it.
This is about 6 cups of our injection liquid. I average about a cup of injection per 5 pounds of meat, so you can kind of increase that calculation for this recipe based on how big your pig is. is totally injected. I started at the shoulders, worked my way through the loin, the belly, the ribs, the tenderloin, and onto the hams. Now it's time to season. I'm using my signature sweet rub seasoning. This is my go-to barbecue seasoning. I use it on all things pork. This is the exact seasoning that I used in Barbecue Brawl, actually, and I think it's the perfect flavor combination for a whole hog. Sprinkle this liberally, you guys. Cover the area. You want it to be nice and layered on your pork. So just hold it up above, give it a shake, and then use your gloved hand to kind of press that seasoning on there. Make sure that it hits everywhere. I actually have a recipe for sweet rub on my website if you would like to make it yourself, or you can buy some from our store, patio-provisions.com. Our pig is trimmed, injected, seasoned, it's ready to go out into the smoker. Like Todd said, we're running at 275 degrees, and today we're running a mix of oak wood and cherry wood. Oak is gonna give us that nice, really robust barbecue flavor. The cherry is gonna be beautiful for color. While our pig's on the smoker, it's important to keep track of the temperatures. Now, because you have several different portions of meat in a whole hog, all of them cook at different times, all of them finish at different temperatures. It's kind of tricky to get it exactly right. So I use the thermometer, and I try to use the thermometer with multiple inputs. I'm gonna be using a ThermoWorks Signals today. This has 4 inputs. So this will allow me to track the temperature in the shoulders, in the loins, in the hams, and also on the smoker itself. Just make sure that your thermometer probes are inserted into the center of the meat, not touching any bones, and we'll keep an eye on those during the cooking process. When cooking a whole hog, it's pretty common and traditional to do a mop sauce or a hog wash. This helps retain the moisture in the pig, adds a ton of flavor, and we're going pretty traditional with our mop sauce today. This is a North Carolina style mop sauce. It's very vinegar heavy. It'll give you some nice tang, some nice bite, and some great acidity to offset the fattiness of this delicious pig. So we're starting with 2 cups of apple cider vinegar, 1.5 cups of apple juice, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of salt, a tablespoon of black pepper, and a tablespoon of red pepper flakes. Now, this mop sauce really imitates the flavors of the injection we use, so they'll be nice and complementary. But because we're not injecting this, we can use some bigger flakes, some bigger flavors in there, like the black pepper and the red pepper flakes, to bring some heat. Take this out by your pit, use it to mop your pig every hour to hour and a half during the cooking process. Once we start to see those internal temperatures hitting about 160 to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, that means our pig's taken on a lot of smoke flavor. We want to crutch the pig so that it'll finish cooking quicker and maintain a lot of that moisture. So I'm gonna be using heavy duty foil. This is perfect for the grill. I like to use the wider 18-inch size because I have to use less layers to cover it. Make sure that your pig is wrapped all the way around, and then tuck the foil underneath and crimp it tightly. This will speed up the cooking process towards the end and give you a nice, super moist finished pulled pork. Our pig is off the pit. Start to finish, this took us about 6.5, 7 hours at 275 degrees for this 35-pound pig. This will change based on how big your hog is, how hot your pit's running, but that's a great guideline, is a 6 to 7 hour mark for a 35-pound pig. Now it's time to take it apart so we can serve it to the people that we love. For these hams, I recommend slicing. You can just take a knife and cut some beautiful slices right here. It's gonna be juicy, it's gonna be moist. It's like a delicious smoked ham roast. Make sure you get a little bit of that seasoning on the outside on every piece. Look at that. Okay, heading up to the shoulders. We cook these to a higher temperature, so these are perfect pulled. You'll see the bone comes right out. You've got some nice strands in here that have a ton of smoke on them. Those look amazing. I generally pull the shoulder and then just make a nice pile right in front. For the adventurous eater, just come right up here along the cheekbones. These cheek and jowl strands are so beautifully marbled with fat and so delicious. I tend to curl those up and just set them aside, and I definitely make sure that I get a few pieces of those. Now it's time to get to the ribs and the belly. We already have a great start on our ribs. You can just run a knife right under these bones right here. And use your fingers to kind of separate the ribs away from that belly. And you can serve those as individual ribs, or you can just cut out pieces for people who want to have, 3 or 5 sets of ribs. And they are so good. Look at that. Yes. And then here's the magic. Right under the ribs and along the skin is your belly. That's where bacon comes from. It's so delicious. You'll get these long strands of perfectly cooked meat. These edge pieces right here have a lot of that nice crispy bark. You can chop those into little crispy ends, or you can shred them into those nice long thick strands. And then last but not least is our loin. Now this runs along the back of the spine right here. You can pull that out with a knife. And depending on how it's done and how you like it, you can either slice it into medallions or you can shred it. I'm gonna slice mine. We've got the cheeks and jowls, the pulled shoulder, shredded belly, pieces of ribs, sliced hams, and our beautiful loin medallions. That means it's time for us to eat. Bring it out the family, because what is the point of cooking something this beautiful if you're not gonna share it with the people you love? I encourage you to do the exact same thing, because at Hey Grill Hey, we are all about helping you make better barbecue, feed the people you love, and become a backyard barbecue hero. This is your shot, going whole hog. See you next time.